Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our Tuesday morning trading session. I trust everyone is well this morning. The market's opening with a little bit of a gap today. Let's take a look here at what's been going on in the overnight. This is the NASDAQ. And it looks as though we're getting a little bit increased volatility, maybe. So yesterday was pretty quiet for the most part. The market did tail off a little bit toward the afternoon session, went sideways for a little bit, found some strength to rally, and then really started to rally toward the close. Through the Asian session, we actually saw markets recover to where they were, and kind of quiet through the European session. But where we're opening up relative to where we left off, which was down here somewhere, there's going to appear to be a bit of an opening gap to the market this morning. I'm just hoping we actually see the market choose a direction today. Yesterday, it spent a lot of time moving sideways. We did have a few scalp opportunities and such, but I think it's important, as a trader, to recognize when the market is not moving well and to allow for that, allow for the market to do what it needs to do before you get too anxious about taking a trade. Or if you are going to take a trade, try to contain yourself to keep your risk exposure as small as possible. So at the moment, I thought we were going to try to get into that opening gap, but now the market almost seems to be strengthening a little bit. Here on the Falcon, you can see that we're holding between the median line and our primary support. The filter is all broken up. It looks like a tartan, and the trend line keeps waffling back and forth. So we may be on hold here for a little bit until we get something going on. We can take a look at gold, which has just had a fairly active morning itself, and the overnight, pardon me, a little bit subdued, I guess. At first blush, it looked a little bit more active. Gold, very, very slow here this morning. Not a whole lot of activity going on in the gold market right now, which they may be waiting on the Janet Yellen speech tomorrow. So we did have a macro pullback signal here, which I'm a little bit late on, but we're going to get another signal here in the Eagle. You can see we're working on a possible trend change signal. We're right back near the lows. It's not the most promising looking signal, but we will keep an eye on it all the same. Crude oil put in a little bit of a rally to start the session, but nothing really that was tradable for us. I suppose here on the Hawk, this would have been our best opportunity. A first micro-macro cross signal, or if you were ultra aggressive, buying the failure of the macro pullback signal, which you can do, although I don't recommend you get too cocky with the market doing that too often. All right, here comes a First micro macro cross now on the hawk. I'm going to test the waters here. Just go in with a single and see whether or not they're going to try to get into that opening range gap, which should see the market trade back down near these lows around 46.75 or so. Yeah, a little bit of an odd start to the morning. Okay, so our first micro macro cross is now retreating a little bit. It's probably going to turn into a macro pullback. Well, there it goes now into yellow bars, so it's totally off limits. And now we're into a green bar sell. So the market very much in a sideways trading range at the moment. Good news is, it does seem as though they're not ready to head lower just yet. Looks like they're going to try to retest that 4700 region one more time. After which, I wouldn't be too surprised to see the sellers really step in. All right, so here's the first micro macro cross higher now. And same thing, we're just testing the top end of the trading range. Looking for a breakout to stick. So these highs right now around this 46.93 area, pretty significant. That would be this whole zone right through here. Wouldn't get too overly aggressive on the buy because we've got some serious resistance issues just above the market. All right, we're not producing a comparable signal on our other tools just yet. So let's get back to nursing our hawk trade. Actually, I'm curious what's going on with the Geiger counter. Oh, it's fairly neutral. And the seller's starting to chew through some of the orders here. Good morning, Jim. Jim giving us some advanced decline numbers. We've got 2,000 on the buy, 650 on the sell. So a very, very positive advanced decline. But remember, a lot of that is going to be from that big overnight gap. If we can see somebody take this 46.93 area, I'm fairly confident we're going to at least rally to our profit target. There we go. And I'm not going to get too cute with the market today. A lot of times what I do when I have a single contract in play is I'll try to put a runner on. Well, actually, you know what? We're going to expand the profit objective a little bit here. We're going to double our profit target. See if we just can't get a little bit extra out of the trade here. Come on, get up there. Come on, buyers. Where did you go? We're back to the median line here on our support and resistance suite. Producing a trend change signal. Funny thing is, though, we got this little double dot just before. We don't see that happen very often. Normally, a trend change signal is a little bit cleaner, where you have your trend line change color. Here's the up, here's the down, here's the up, and then you generate your buy signal. Coincidentally, this also formed a late filter entry, as did this signal right here on the trend line touch. This was around yesterday's close. All right, so we've hit our break-even target. Hooray. How much profit do we have here? Maybe I should have just taken the 50 bucks when I had it. I said I wasn't going to get cute. There we go. Because there is some strength up on these highs, folks. The closer we get to that 4,700 area, that's where the NQ got knocked down several times before. Momentum slowing down quite a bit. Crude oil on a very steady charge higher this morning. That's interesting. You know, when you take your signals, you also need to try to keep in mind the whole context of your chart. Never hurts to look at something like a daily chart, or even a weekly chart for that matter. Even though we're trading intraday, it's a good idea to know, where you are right now. here's a daily chart of the NASDAQ. And you can see, here we are right now, kind of wedging up a little bit, also in sort of a trading range all at the same time. Very tight little trading range. Buyers and sellers both fighting for dominance. See, it's hard to tell whether this is the new trend or whether this is the resumption of the trend. We had a pretty strong breakout here. And normally if that's the case, any pullbacks against the breakout, you pretty much ignore. But we haven't had much follow through on the breakout. Not yet anyway, which is why I said as we get closer to this 4,700 area, you can see we're going to be testing the top end of this trading range. And that could be problematic. Welcome to the wonderful world of trading. All right, so here we are. We did make it back to 4,700. Now we're testing these highs. Oh, I should have paid more attention to gold. We were watching for this eagle signal to develop. I was in the NQ trade. This would have been a much better signal to watch. We're against the ATR as the signal develops. So the next bar actually becomes our signal bar because that's the one that turns the ATR over. And you can see that I've doubled the profit objective here. We have hit our high probability profit target, but just a very nice steady progression lower in gold. So hopefully somebody was able to grab a hold of that one. Oh wow, and looks like I've ditched my hawk trade far too early also. Here's a better trend change signal on the Falcon than the other one. Oops, sorry, same one. Like I said, this is a little confusing when you see the double dot form so close to the signal. Normally they're spread out a little bit more. But very nice progression from that one too. I think our profit objective probably fell, yeah, right there. I was going to say near the primary resistance line, but actually our profit target was before that. So a couple very solid signals from the NQ this morning. It does look as though the market has committed to a trend and is trying to press higher. Like Jim says, huge 10 a.m. range today. Yes, sir. So we've got a few minutes before we anticipate the market may top out. Okay, crude oil finally stalling somewhat, as is the NASDAQ. Okay, a little bit of a pullback or a stall. A pullback would be preferable. Oh, way to go, Tony. Tony held on to the NQ trade a little bit longer. He got out at 47.04. Nicely done. That's a nice way to start the day. Wow, they're just continuing to press higher still. I don't feel good about buying in at these levels. We haven't really got a clean signal just yet anyhow here on the Hawk. I'm waiting for a macro pullback or perhaps a 4-arrow consolidation. The Falcon is close to giving us a trend line touch, but whenever the Falcon signal develops away from the trend line, this gap not quite so serious as some. Let me see if I can find you a bigger gap. No, of course not. I won't be able to find you one now. Okay, we're going to pretend for a moment. We're going to pretend for a moment that a signal printed right around here. I'm just trying to show you the proximity to the trend line. When you get a signal printing away from the trend line or a long ways away from the trend line, very often the market will pull back into the trend line before heading higher or lower, whatever the signal may be. Typically, a trend line touch signal has a little bit more strength to it. This one did not touch because it was our trend change signal. But if you're looking for a subsequent signal, normally we like to see a trend line touch. We like to see it come to the trend line, touch it, maybe even get into that trend line, and then come out. Here's a nice trend line touch signal. You can see this was also a good trend line touch signal. And it's not that the signal that develops away from the trend line isn't any good. It's just that before the market eventually goes higher, it may come back to the trend line, thrash about a little bit, and then go higher. Of course, now the market will make a liar out of me and just keep going. Jim's updating me here on some advanced decline numbers. It looks like still very strong, still about 1,400 positive, so 2,100 on the buy, about 600 or so on the sell. Crude oil starting to come in with a little bit of a rally also, and just looking for a signal to print here on crude. This is crude oil now on the Falcon. This is our trend change signal. You can see we're sitting at the median line waiting for the signal to print. Problem with the crude oil market, of course, is covering this trade. So the signal, we can anticipate the signal will print right there. So where am I going to cover it? Ideally, I want to cover it, as deep as possible. Give me as much protection against a retest of the lows, but can't do it. Alternatively, I could use the primary support. Nope, can't do that either. So crude oil being very sticky at the moment. And now we are here at the top of the hour, the highs at the top of the hour. Now, it's not to say that the market cannot go higher from here, obviously. Rather, very often that opening range, that first half hour of trading, kind of sets a significant boundary for the market. We are producing a buy signal here on the Raptor, but I would suggest taking it above the swing high that's here. You do have a chance to add a second push on this signal. I would much prefer a little bit of a pullback to make buying a little bit easier. The range is the problem here. It's similar to what we were looking at with the crude oil market. Where are we going to cover the trade, right? We can certainly enter above the high, but knowing that the market is struggling a little bit, oh, by the way, this is a late filter entry signal. It is one of our high probability signals. So I'm fairly confident the market will trade higher from here if in fact engages that signal. But where do I cover the trade? Covering the trade below this swing low right here just seems too tight. Covering the trade back here to the median line is better because we've got some of this old resistance which should now act as support, and covering below this swing low or even the low of the morning seems like a much better idea, but I don't know if I can afford that. No, that's going to be out of reach. Sometimes your best opportunities come from trading the least. You just take a signal, you place a stop, and you let the market do what it's going to do that day. If you're able to get your trade to break even, so much the better. Okay, so the hawk is the first to look a little bit weaker now. We are getting a soft edge sell on the Raptor. Now I'm going to show this to you. This is obviously a counter trend trade, and what we're looking at with the no, how did I get long? I didn't want to get long. I pushed the wrong button. We'll do it this way. There we go. That's better. What we're looking at with the soft edge sell, it's a signal that develops when the band gets a little bit wider, or typically when the band gets a little bit wider. And it's a sell signal against a dominant trend. So for that reason, it's a counter trend signal. It's going to be higher risk right out of the gate. So if you're focusing on soft edge sells, be aware that you're trading against the dominant trend, and that right away is going to make things a little bit more difficult for you. However, we normally anticipate that the market's going to retrace back to the hard edge when these things happen. It's very important that we see a test of the extreme or a retest. You can think of it as a double top or a failure swing, or however you want to interpret it. But it's very important that you see that before you try this counter trend move, because this test of the extreme is what's going to give you the hint that perhaps the market is getting ready to reverse and head lower. The Geiger counter right now working in our favor a little bit. The dial hard over here to the sell side. You can see the sellers just chewing through those orders. That should give us a little bit of a move to the downside. So I think we're going to be okay here. But like I said, overall, it's a riskier trade to take. Nice thing about the soft edge sell is that you have the opportunity to cover above the highs. So you have a very well-defined area to say, no, I'm wrong, time to get out. So if the market reverses now and heads higher and does trade above these highs, well, then you can be sure that you're on the wrong side of the trade and you may as well take your medicine. If this bar closes lower, I'm going to get a little bit more aggressive with my stops and perhaps start trailing a little bit closer. There we go. We should see a little bit of follow through now. The Geiger counter, ooh, it was chewing through the sell orders there. Not going to give, there we go. Come on, swing over to the dark side. Sometimes these trades can have very good follow through to them, although for the most part I tend to just do them as a scalp type trade. Just get in, get out, and I'm going to get tagged here in a moment if they don't put the heat on the buyers. Come on, sellers. And again, I've got a very aggressive stop going here. Come on. Come on, chew through those sell orders. Get me back to the hard edge. You can do it. And Jim says the DAX is giving it up. If it flashes me $100 here, I'll pop out. Come on. Okay, I'm going to force the trade to break even now. So you either give me the $100 or you give me the 10. Oh, that's right. We'll take the 80. I hit the close button. Oh, there they go. See, I hit the close button a little bit too soon. My reactions aren't quite what they used to be. Well, that's all right. So we would have found our profit objective. I'm a little gun shy this morning. That's 2 trades I popped out a little early on, but that's all right. I'm okay with it. Rather have a profitable trade. So here we had our red bar buy on the hawk. Same time we were getting the soft edge sell on the raptor. And you can see that here too we had that test of the extreme, which the red bar buy, of course, you have the option. You can either set up to buy it or you can set up for the failure of the red bar buy. Actually, I should roll it back. There, this is technically the red bar buy signal. So you can set up to short the failure. And again, the nice thing is that you could cover just above the high. And you can see the market didn't waste any time getting down to the profit target. Or didn't waste too much time getting down to the profit target. Look at here on the Geiger counter. Look at this little island of selling. That's what we were holding on for here, and we had the sellers just move the dial hard over. The buyers weren't absorbing it, and yet the follow through was slight. Could have been a few traders in our camp just looking for a little short-term pullback type move. Tony picking up a couple of ticks on the Russell, shorted at 1199.3, covered at 1197.3. Well done. Tony rocking the NASDAQ and the Russell this morning. This is the hard part, or the really hard part now, is trying to determine if the market is in an uptrend. We did see a rather significant move higher. Or is it reversing and getting into a downtrend? We're going to be producing a buy signal here shortly. On the Raptor, you can see we're getting ready to produce one here on the Eagle. We've got a first micro macro cross going here on the Hawk. But it's a very difficult decision at this point. Here, speaking of difficult decisions, macro pullback here in crude oil. A little bit late on it, but at least this one had a setup that we could cover. Oh, sorry, I shouldn't have brought the crude oil chart over, missed my first micro macro cross. We are getting a trend change here now on the Falcon. And I can probably still simulate this one. Can I cover up there? Yes, I can. So technically, this is a trend change signal. We're putting a lot of emphasis now on this little itty-bitty test of the extreme that we had near the top. Normally, if we see a market reverse, we see a more pronounced test of the extreme, where prices will come down, then they'll come back, give us a real good look at the highs and then the failure. Oh, quick little move on the part of the NQ. Oh, it does look as though that initial trend higher is not. So loads of selling going on in the NASDAQ. So good opportunities across the board there. We got the Falcon signal. There was also our first micro macro cross signal here in the Hawk. Huge follow through on that. So the Raptor soft edge sell, this is one that had exceptional follow through. You can take the time, for those of you who are trading the Raptor, go through your chart, find your soft edge sells, make sure you have a test of the extreme before, and just see how they follow through. You're going to see that they're going to almost always get you to the hard edge. So here's a little bit itty bitty test of the extreme, soft edge sell. When they occur closer to the hard edge, you can fudge it a little bit more. The opposite is the soft edge buy. Remember, you need to have that test of the extreme. Without that test of the extreme, you're really just asking for it. And it really is it works out, but it is a riskier trade to take because, of course, it is counter trend. But it's well worth your time to take a few moments, go through your chart, and find your soft edge sells. Now, see, this is one, it did work out. I would not have taken it, though, because we did not have a test of the extreme. It's also a good exercise to take a look at these, the ones that don't have the test of the extreme, and just see how they compare with the ones that do have the test of the extreme. Well, here's a soft edge buy. It's actually a very late soft edge buy. It had good follow through, but what you're going to find is that those soft edge buys and sells that don't have a test of the extreme preceding it, you're going to either end up taking some heat or a full out reversal. Well, here we are, fell back right to the start of the day down here around the 46.81 area. Oh dear, I think we may be in for a very large channel. Yeah, like Jim says, what happened? Did a bomb just drop? Yeah, something hit the news. Let's see what I can find out. Um, yeah, I don't know. I'm just snooping here through the reports, and yeah, it's nothing that significant. Okay, well, we don't always need to know the reason why, do we? Nope, we don't. They did put the brakes on though, didn't they? They get back down here and they put the brakes on in a big way. It could be Kerry. Kerry asks, the ISM manufacturing report apparently was lower than expected, but it came out at the top of the hour. I'm not sure. Well, yeah, they could have some effect on the NQ. The ISM typically is more influential with the Dow, but they're all kind of tied at the hip nowadays. Well, they really did put the brakes on, didn't they? So we had that first move higher, then we had a very quick move lower. Now we're right back to where we started. All right, so here's a little bit of a pullback slash consolidation phase. Of course, the problem with any signal we're developing here now, I'm waiting on the macro pullback or 4-arrow consolidation, pardon me, is covering this sucker. How far back do I have to hold this to keep myself in the trade? Do I max out my risk or max out my account relative to my risk? Oh yeah, see, I can't do it there. The macro pullback is getting more and more inviting as it rallies, but this is a really, really tough sell. A really tough sell. Oh, way to go, Tony. Tony's knocking it out of the park today. Just to keep things interesting, he shorted the crude oil market at 41.75 and got out at 41.66. He says he's done for the day. Nicely done, Tony. Okay, the macro pullback keeps retreating. This is a tough little trade here, folks. Oops, just missed my... I'll put the order in, but I actually expect the market to pull back a little bit higher here. So this is, if you're looking for a trade to follow in on, probably not the best one that we've seen this morning. Oh, I might luck out on this one. Get down there. Okay, we hit the break-even trigger, and oh, whew. Well, you know what? I expect the market to go lower, but I honestly thought this one was going to play out like this, like it was going to bring me in, and then it was going to track a little higher, maybe get into a green bar sell, and then start to go lower. That's why I was a little bit concerned about this trade, is I didn't think it was going to come straight down. I thought we were going to see a little bit of a burst higher first. Yeah. Jim says it's amazing how gravity works on price action. Pulled them straight down. Still too early to tell whether this is just going to develop into a trading range or whether we're actually going to see prices continue. So it does appear as though we're getting ourselves into a rather tight little trading range. With loads of support on the lows. Oh no. Jim's got a little bad timing here this morning. He says he was short the YM at 39, got out at 34, and 3 seconds later it dropped like a rock. Yeah, I feel your pain. I've been there. Ooh. Jim says he was short 5 contracts too. That would have been a big payday. Well, now, like I said, we're back into a rather tight little trading range. Let's see here on the Falcon, we're hovering above the, or on the primary support. Kind of trapped. Market obviously not too keen to go much higher than they did this morning. 47.10 was the high of the day. Oh, hold on here. Things are getting interesting again. Oh, look at that. We got a breakout now to the upside. So the buyers given what for to the sellers. Okay, here's a first micro macro cross. I would not, I would only entertain buying this market on a move higher. Big problem again, covering the trade, staying far enough away, but covering below the lows, that's fundamentally sound. Okay, let's see if we get any follow through on this breakout now. Wow, the advanced decline numbers seem to have remained bullish all morning. Jim says we've got 2,000 on the buy and just under 800 on the sell. So where did we start the day? At about a positive 1,400. Now we're at positive 1,200. Moving back toward this whole 4,700 region where we had difficulty before. Come on, get up there a little ways. Let's see what other, if we're producing any other signals. We did produce a signal here on the Eagle, not an easy signal to take. Oh, here on the Hawk, or pardon me, the Raptor, we did have our soft edge buy that we were just talking about. And it was preceded by a test of the extreme, and that was looking like it's getting some pretty nice follow through on it also. The Hawk trade just hovering below my break even. I'm going to roll it below there. I don't feel like taking much of a hit today. Come on, get up there. Let's see what the Geiger counter is up to. Oh, the Geiger counter chewing through the sell orders. Maybe I'll pop it to break even and just force the trade. There we go. Buyers coming back a little. Trading like Ray Burke today. He never had any patience for the market either. It's either take me out or make me rich, either or. Ray was never one for hanging around. This high right here at 46.97, very, very significant. If we don't see the market tick above there, we should see a deeper retracement. This is kind of the buyers making their intentions known. So, in other words, if the buyers can't continue the rally, then the sellers are going to take it away. But it looks like the buyers are continuing to press. And you know what? We may see them push all the way back up here to the highs. Look at them go. Well, oops, I got my share. I'm okay with it. Okay, so here they are. And Tony makes an interesting observation. Tony writes, he agrees with Jim's earlier comment about the holiday trading mentality. Crude oil only 214,000 in volume. NASDAQ 91,000. Russell only 29,000. That is light. Yeah, Tony says, remember the good old days in trading? Yeah, I know. It is odd. There's no reason. Well, there is a reason. Traders are just not sure of the stock market. So they're looking for alternate investments. Gold's been very sporadic this morning also. Yeah, like Jim says, it makes it a little easier to move the market when the volume is off like this. It's we've seen some very pronounced moves this morning, but it has been tough slogging. Very, very neutral bar here on the Eagle. Another island of buying going through the market here on the Geiger counter. Oh, nuts. I looked away for a second. I was waiting for the Raptor signal here to produce on this cloud crossover. We got it right here. I just checked the comment box when it broke out. Yeah, I agree with Jim. Jim says the index with such large advancers should test the upper price today. I think that's entirely feasible. We've got just a monster range going on here today. Lots of support on the lows, lots of support near the highs. Well, now we're kind of stuck a bit. Let's see whether the Falcon signal found its profit objective. Yes, it did. Which means that our Raptor would have also found its profit target. And as you might anticipate, we're getting some resistance again as we get near the highs of the day. You can see the width of these bars. We're getting a lot of volume passing through here. No doubt some profit taking. No doubt some selling. Well, this was a much better session today. I didn't realize that we're at the top of the hour already. At least we had some stuff going on today. If you're going to trade this afternoon, folks, you really need to respect these highs, especially since the market made such a pronounced reversal last time it got here. It hit the highs, made a very strong move lower. We're seeing some hesitation now on the part of the buyers, probably because the sellers are loading up also. I think we're going to find ourselves in a little bit of a range. Now, I would welcome a pullback and a buying opportunity. and I would be a little bit suspect of a rally at this point until we get a little bit of a pullback, a little bit of a retest. If the buyers recover it, near the hard edge somewhere, I think that they're going to try to press the market higher still. However, I think it's much more likely that we're going to see a little bit of a retracement from here. So loads of resistance, loads of selling near the highs, buying coming back in near the lows. Either way, very active day. I think you're going to want to, in spite of the big moves that we've been seeing, I think you may be better off just getting in and getting out. All right. Well, best of luck to you. Tomorrow is Wednesday, and we're going to be back in our open house trading room. So I will see you guys at the public forum tomorrow. Be careful. We'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.